Your Excellencies, the President of Latvia, Mr. Edgars Rinkevičs, the President of Finland, Mr. Aleksandrs Stubb, dear guests, dear students, academic staff members, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Rīgas Stradiņa University Administration, it's my great pleasure and honor today to welcome you all in the Medical Education Technology Center of Rīgas Stradiņa University. We are proud for that possibility to host this presentation dialogue in the using, in the understanding of artificial intelligence in our real life, including processes in the higher education system. Some words about Rīgas Stradiņa University. Rīgas Stradiņa University is the third largest university of Latvia with 12,500 students. We are an open European university with more than 60 study programs in medicine, in healthcare, in social and sports sciences. Our academic and research staff also is international because every fifth our professor represents Scandinavian countries, Germany, the United States of America, the United Kingdom, and different countries from all the world. I would like to say we are international university because every fourth our student comes from abroad. We have a lot of students from Scandinavian countries, more than 3,000 students from Germany, from EU countries, from the United States, from New Zealand. And I would like to say we have 641 students from Finland. And I think it's very friendly, very international student society, like a great international family. Of course, artificial intelligence providing in our study process, innovation, performing, and simulation technologies using are the most important topics of the development of Rīgas Stradiņa University. We started this process about 10 years ago, and in my opinion, the start was in 2018, because we received a diploma of quality of innovation process and signed diploma by President of Finland, Sauli Niisto, and it was very symbolical because today our guest is President of Finland, Aleksandrs Stubb. Dear friends, dear colleagues, we are proud because this summer we admitted the first students in our new master study programs, Administration of Artificial Intelligence. Finally, I would like to wish you all a successful presidential dialogue, active participating, and thank you for joining us today. Good luck. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the kind words. My name is Jānis Sārts. I'm director of NATO Strategic Communication Center of Excellence. And I was kindly asked to try to moderate this very interesting topic. And I have to admit that when I think about the European leaders, I don't think many of those would be ready to go on non-scripted discussion about AI. So that is my first compliment to the two gentlemen.
I have a script here.
Oh no, you don't know the neural laces I have connected to my phone, so it's okay.
Finland always step ahead. But let me start with a kind of rather broad look, and that is, I hope, and I think it is more kind of comfortable for you to start more at a geopolitical perspective. And I'd start with the kind of thoughts of a gentleman that probably is not that liked in this region, but still has a very sizable reputation, and that is Henry Kissinger. As we know, his last books, actually 2 of those, were on AI, together with Eric Schmidt and Craig Mundie. And in those books, he was pretty much trying to talk and warn that AI is the technology that has much more profound consequence to the geopolitics than the nuclear technology has ever been. What do you think is going to be these impacts, if you agree first, and secondarily, let's say 5 years in a dynamic, how you see these kind of impacts on geopolitics play out? President Stubb.
Thanks for having me start. Thanks a lot for the invitation. Much appreciated. Really nice to be here. I actually read the second book on artificial intelligence. I do recommend everyone to read that.
Genesis.
Yeah, and read it together probably with Mustafa Suleyman's latest book on artificial intelligence.
The New Wave.
Which is a little bit more dystopic, I think, than the rather pragmatic approach that I think Eric Schmidt and Kissinger took. You know, on your first question, what's the impact on geopolitics? I think it's going to be colossal. In general, if you look at the impact of a combination, because we are in a school of medicine as well, if we look at the impact of biotechnology, artificial intelligence, robotization, Internet of Things, the general technological revolution that we are going through right now, it has already and it will impact the economy and the way in which we work, politics and the way in which we communicate, war and the way in which we conduct it, thus geopolitical impact, and then finally science and the way in which we are as human beings. Really, we are talking about one of these industrial or technological revolutions which will change everything, and this is without putting any kind of hyperbole on it. You don't have to be a student of Yuval Harari or anyone else to understand that we're moving from a technology that used to not have agency, like for instance a computer, to artificial intelligence, especially when we go to generative AI or general AI, to a technology which potentially has agency. I remember being at and I know I shouldn't probably say this, but I was at a Bilderberg meeting in 2016, and I'm not allowed to say who said it, but put it this way, he had something to do with a company called DeepMind, which later was sold to Google, and I asked him the question that, this artificial intelligence, but tell me, when do you think computers are going to cry? And he looked at me and said, Alex, I'm working on it. So I do think that AI is changing a lot of things, and then as always, you have so many different ways of approaching it. There are those people who are in denial and think that technology only works for good, and then there are those people who think that this is going to lead to a dystopia. Most probably it's going to be somewhere in between. But geopolitically, I think it will have a big impact, because another person who is probably not very popular here is Vladimir Putin. He has said that the one who controls AI will control the world. And I think that's why you see probably a big technological rivalry right now between the United States and China. This just as a short opening.
Thank you very much. I think quite a lot of important thought there. But President Rinkevich, given that there is such a profound impact, does it really matter who has developed the technology? Or is it about the skill of the ones that are using it? So, in other words, does it matter that US and China are ahead of Europe, or it is inconsequential?
Well, first of all, thank you really also to the university for having us today. I do believe that actually both issues are important. It is very important that there are enough people who know how to use AI, how to develop AI, how to work on technological development. But at the same time, what we are seeing is that we do have some competition. And those countries that are able to put more investment currently in development of AI inevitably develop also skills of those people who are there. I think that that is quite inevitable to see that those are kind of complementary processes. However, I would say, and a little bit coming back to your first question that you posed, Alex, with AI, we do have the problem that once was so nicely put by former Secretary of Defense Ramsfeld, that there are known knowns, there are known unknowns, there are unknown knowns, but at the end of the day, there are many unknown unknowns. And here, even if we do believe that this is the technology that develops fast and the whole AI world is changing as we speak at almost the speed of the light, we still do have so many issues that it is impossible to answer. Because we have a good comparison. When we had internet age starting, everyone thought that that's the end of the world and history as we know. No, we transformed. When we got social media up and running, there was a lot of positive thinking that this is going to be the force for good. It turned out actually to be a very, very problematic thing. With AI, I think we start from a bit different approach. We are more worried than we probably see the opportunity, even if there are still discussions. And from that perspective, I would say that the one who understands AI and knows how to use, at the end of the day, is going also to be in control of the whole process.
Yeah. Well, President Stubb, you said we might have an AI with some sort of agency at some point. But do you think in that time when AI becomes with some agency, will governments still have an agency? Or if we do not reinvent the way we do the governance? Because I think we all seen the problem we're seeing, I think, at least in my field, the regulatory frameworks increasingly can't catch up and do any good onto the technological development. Once AI gets an agency, is there going to be an agency for the government?
Yeah, I think so, because, I mean, one of the problems I think we have in modern society, but I guess we've had it throughout the history of mankind, is an attempt somehow to give responsibility away to or for something. You know, you might victimize yourself in the name of history and therefore lift up your hands. Or you might say, I don't understand AI is going to take over. So you kind of give up. And I belong to a different kind of school. I think that each and every one of us has agency. And the same thing goes, I think, for foreign policy. You know, when I started studying your age in 1989, it was the era of hope, where we believed that, you know, the Berlin Wall came down, the Cold War ended, and we were moving towards some kind of, you know, end of history with green fields and flowers and rainbows and peace signs and technological advancement and freedom and liberalism and the rest of it. But then at some stage we woke up and understood that no, that's not the case. The same goes with democracy. You know, democracy doesn't exist unless human beings and people have agency in it. Let me try to give you two quick examples which are linked to does it matter who has the keys. The first one is I started to write a book 5 years ago when I was still free, so I could write whatever I wanted, which was lovely. Enjoy the time while you have it. And that book was called Digital Democracy or Digital Dictatorship. And the basic premise was that, you know, you're looking at a world where you're going to have a technological competition between democracies and dictatorships. And probably I would have fallen to the side of saying that, as a matter of fact, democracies are going to win this. Dictatorships are going to lose it because you can't control artificial intelligence. But I'm not so sure anymore, because we can already see the advancement of more or less autocratic nations in the tools of artificial intelligence and technology, whether it's face recognition or whatever. And we kind of saw the discrepancy in this during COVID, the way in which China had a lockdown versus perhaps the rest of the world that didn't. Now, I didn't end up writing that book. I wrote another book which was on geopolitics and had a slightly different thesis, but technology was still a big part of it. I think it all boils down to how we use basically the fuel of artificial intelligence, which is data, right? I mean, with quantum computing, I think that's going to change, but let's take hypothetically that we're not going to have, you know, quantum computing in the scale that we expect it to be in the next 5 to 10 years. So in the meanwhile, it's about data. And you have, I think, 3 ways to deal with data. The first one is the, I simplify, Chinese way, where data is collected, centralized, and kind of owned by the government. So, you know, there's an argument to be made there that you can use data for the collective good, right? Someone who believes in individual freedom might get a little bit uneasy with the idea, including myself, but that is the thesis. The second way to use data is, and I simplify again, is the American way. So you basically have private companies that have the right to use data, and you and I press agree every time and give consent to Google when we do a search, or to ChatGPT when we do a search. So we kind of say that it's not with the government, and the individual has the right to decide, but it's the company that kind of owns the data. And then the third, and I'm simplifying again, way of dealing with data is the European way, where it's all about, you know, privacy, right? That I own my data. And there are a lot of really good books written about this as well. Come to one when I remember it in a second. Now, I personally think that when it comes to data, and therefore the development of artificial intelligence and this race, you probably need all 3. Mm-hmm. So you cannot be completely binary on this and say data is only for the private individual, or data is only for the company, or data is only for government. And we need to find the balance. And right now we are in the race for this data. And then I think the jury is still out who is winning it. Are China better at collectivizing and using the data than America or than Europe? I don't have an answer for that. But I do think that government will still have agency in this system, so we're not going to be run by, you know, artificial intelligence. But my argument is that government has to realize that they should use artificial intelligence as an instrument in trying to run it. And then my final point, no technology is neutral. That, you know, technology always has, so an algorithm has to be coded. And by the way, when you were young, someone probably told you, you know, the future is in coding. Remember, you need to learn how to code. And now everyone says, well, you know, artificial intelligence does the coding, so don't worry about it. But it is a value judgment, and it is a choice at the end of the day. But I do believe that governments and we individuals still have agency over artificial intelligence.
I have to say I like your answer, but I'm afraid to say that some of the data that is very recent in the research from Cambridge and some other places indicate, and there's this paper called Intention Economy, where their researchers are looking at the way AI systems can place intentionality through conversations without humans. Yeah. So I think there is a lot of question marks. So President Rinkevich, yes, there are a lot of risks, and as you rightly said, there's a big amount of people, especially in Europe, that consider these risks. What do you see these geostrategic opportunities with AI?
Well, that's a very good question. Opportunities. Well, first of all, I wouldn't put it in terms of geostrategic or geopolitical opportunities. I would probably make a bit generalized point. Indeed, what we see with AI, it speeds up a lot of things that we have done previously. I'm coming from that generation that still, I have to admit, uses AI tools probably more than ever for kind of Google research. Instead of Googling, I'm asking the question to AI. I know that I have to reach another level as well when it comes to data analysis. But I do believe that number one benefit is, of course, that it helps to speed up processes. It helps to analyze enormous amounts of data to give a very good feedback and also suggestions when it comes to the scientific development. Number two, yes, what we see, but it's very difficult to say this is opportunity or this is actually the challenge. But like it or not, we see that the artificial intelligence being deployed in war, in defense industry, actually so far has been helping a lot, for instance, to Ukrainians to fight the war. They are doing currently things that were unimaginable a couple of years ago, even a year ago or so. I think we talked earlier today with Alex that both of us were in Kiev last February, and we had the chance to see how Ukrainian defense industry is developing drones, anti-drone systems. Most of them are equipped with AI. So this is just strategic opportunity for the good guys, but it's also just strategic challenge for us if the bad guys are doing. And the bad guys are developing AI also very, very quickly. Number three, indeed, I also think that at the end of the day, no government, and still government is the most powerful, be it big or small government in big or small countries, most powerful monopoly of anything is going to completely let development of AI technologies. We have seen that currently there are enormous challenges of AI being used not only to promote democracy, but actually to be used in a completely opposite way. We have seen the use of AI during electoral campaigns, so this is another challenge. The good thing is, again, that properly deployed artificial intelligence can be used to protect democracies. So to some extent, I would say when it comes to science, when it comes to learning process, and I think that each and every school, be it university or be it high school, we are still trying to figure out how we can use AI as a part of learning process rather than just to ask AI, write me whatever paper I need and then to make some adjustment. But then I would still say that when it comes to democracies and authoritarian regimes, when Alex was speaking, I had the kind of the same answer. A couple of years ago, I would be saying AI, that's great for democracies. Today, I'm not so sure, because there is one difference. At the end of the day, I still think that in a democratic society is going to prevail. Why? Because authoritarian societies, they suppress the free will of the people and also some kind of entrepreneurial spirit. In democracies, you still get things moving in a freer way than normally.
Can I just on that, I fully agree, and actually the book that I eventually ended up writing did have a conclusion that at the end of the day, the self-correcting mechanism of liberal democracy will prevail over an autocratic system, because as you all know as scientists or students, the process of scientific knowledge is through error and correction until you sort of find the right way of progressing. And I think that in an authoritarian regime where you're not allowed to criticize something is going to be quite complicated. But when we look at the opportunities of AI, and of course, you can be a tech optimist, you can be a tech pessimist or a tech realist with all sorts. But I do think that the number one benefit of it is going to be linked to science and, of course, things such as CRISPR technology. And I think that a lot of the scientists that work with artificial intelligence, including probably many of you in the future, you will use artificial intelligence as an instrument to improve something, whether it's biological or physiological or whatever it might be. By the way, a little parenthesis, I remember being asked that, am I afraid of neural laces, which I was joking about? And I'm not excessively afraid of them because I actually think that we are cyborgs already, because of the way in which we are connected to technology and to our phones. ChatGPT being a good example. Another parenthesis, I'm afraid that I'm going to fall behind. And I think we're moving towards a world of reverse mentorship. So you guys are going to be teaching, the likes of me to hang in there. So it's not, the old wise man in the village who is, it's not going to be like that. And I see that with my kids, 21 and 23 as well, that I'm left behind. Another little anecdote, when I was at Florence at the European University Institute, we recruited as a visiting professor Bengt Holmström, who is Finnish, built his career in Stanford and MIT and ended up getting a Nobel Prize in economics. Brilliant mind. And, he is probably, north of 70 now or approaching 70. And he came in, it's like 3 years ago, just when ChatGPT had, hit the market. And, all in the faculty were, what are we going to do with this? That students are going to get information in a different kind of way. They can cheat and so on and so forth. So what Bengt did, he was brilliant, I thought. He said, okay, your assignment for the final exam is to ask ChatGPT this question, and then you correct it yourself. And again, we shouldn't be afraid of using artificial intelligence. My daughter, who, if it's over 3 o'clock now, will have handed in her master's thesis in psychology for UCL. And because the deadline was 3 o'clock today, you know the feeling? Yep. Well done. So I asked her that, have you used AI or ChatGPT? Yes, it's the best thing you can do. But you use it to verify, to correct, to search for information. But when I was writing the book, I was a little bit old school. So I kind of, in a few places, would use it, like what's the economic development of a certain country, and then I'll get a rundown. And you can use it as a tool, but I'll give you one more. I had my first New Year's speech. How many Finns in the audience? Yeah, 641.
Be careful now.
Yeah. So the idea of a presidential New Year's speech, it sort of, sets the tone. You give it on New Year's Day, the 1st of January. And I wrote the speech myself, but when I started writing, just for the hell of it, I went to ChatGPT and I said, hi, I'm President Alexander Stubb. Could you write a New Year's speech for me? And then it sort of, came out, would this be a structure? So it was absolute crap. It was just horrible. It was really, really bad. I mean, just full of cliches and things. So I think we're not at the stage yet where, the emotional intelligence of artificial intelligence is going to surpass us. But I think it's super interesting times. But I have no idea where this is going to go. And now what does worry me a little bit, it is so fast that will the human brain be able to follow what's going on? I don't know.
Just very quick. I have to confess, I did almost what Alex did. I don't know how many Latvians are in the audience, but...
we're in trouble in the media tomorrow.
I think already tonight. And we have some experts here in the room. No, but I agree very much. We do have still an issue where, when it comes to emotions, where it comes to expectations, we still want to see something fresh and new and something kind of good coming out of the public statements. However, one thing that I forgot to mention about opportunities, I think it comes very much to smaller nations. The smaller nations, because of our language, the Latvian language is spoken only here in Latvia and some of the Latvian diaspora, so we are 1.3 roughly million or so.
Finnish feels like a world language now.
The Finnish is a bit higher because you have also your Estonian cousins, so it has to be counted. But on a serious note, then you have the opportunity to use all the AI tools also when it comes, and here we have some good examples, learning, getting your message across much quicker, translating, using all those opportunities that AI tool is actually giving. When I was in the United States last September, I was visiting a couple of those AI companies, and they quickly asked for a sample of my voice. In 10 seconds, they made a perfect Latvian president speaking in Japanese, doing something I have no idea, and speaking about something I have no idea. But I think for small nations, actually use of AI, especially when it comes to information, not only gathering, but also disseminating, is something that probably could be and is already a great opportunity.
Well, first a comment. I hate to break to you. It's the way you prompt and task the AI on writing speeches.
I know.
That's because there is a way how you can get rather emotional piece. It is a bit more kind of elaborate. I'm sure many of you have been working on different theses, and the way you can get not a very good thesis out of it, and the ways how you can get a better thesis. So it's all about the time you spent. But more seriously,
call me in December when I start.
We'll talk later.
But more seriously, actually, I think last year's Nobel Prize winners too were based pretty much on AI-based kind of foundations. So it is all.
Hassabis, I think. That was previous, yeah.
Yeah. But the question, based on what President Rinkevich said, how do we, and what are the things for us as a smaller nations, what we have to do to profit, to use our size and agility to be at the forefront, rather than to be an object of others in this race? Sure. What are the things to do? Okay. What should we focus on?
Yeah. First of all, don't focus on the past. Don't even focus on the present, but try to focus on the future, which is obviously quite complex. I'm quite sick and tired of a lot of Europeans complaining that we used to be great in the telecommunications business in the 1990s, and then we fell behind in digitalization in 2000. And then to the US, and then we fell behind to China in artificial intelligence in 2010. My answer is, okay, what are you going to do about it? So, I'm just a humble president, so I don't have the answer for the private sector, but I think one of the things that we're looking at in Finland, or companies are looking at, is quantum. And of course, quantum, you have hardware and you have software. So on the hardware side, we end up having one of, I think, top 3 quantum companies in the world in the form of IQM, which interestingly enough is originating in Aalto University by 2 Dutch scientists who've now then spun it into a big company. So they do the hardware kind of stuff, of which I understand very little, but I have been told that you can make nice supercomputers, and once they make the big breakthroughs, my laptop is 1 to 10 million of the speed that can be done. And then you have another hardware or enabler company called Blueforce, which basically has 50% of the cooling market of quantum, which you need as an infrastructural measure, otherwise you cannot run the programs that you do. And then on the software side, we have a couple of companies, QMIL and Algorithmics, which both try to work on the software side. So in my really simple head, hardware in quantum is kind of the computer or the phone, and software is, the Apple or the Microsoft. I'm simplifying, right? Now, What do we do? Well, apart from try to get world domination in this, but the idea for me would be that a small country like Finland, if at this stage it has a competitive advantage in quantum, it needs to hold on to it. So that means that it needs to create the infrastructure around it, data centers, supercomputers like Lumi up in Kajaani and elsewhere, and then have the mentality that a lot of the investment and research and development that you put in is exactly in that field, and then see what kind of different stuff it sort of spins out. But again, it's not the government that chooses the champions, but quantum is a great opportunity now for a small country like Finland, and I think we should invest as much as possibly we can in it.
Do you intend to pivot to running a number of services the government does to the population through AI?
That you have to ask the government. So the constitution is quite clear in Finland. I do foreign policy and I'm the commander-in-chief of the defense forces, but it's the government that does a lot of the research development. It runs the budget, et cetera, and it's the government that basically decides on, say, healthcare services and what can be used on AI. So I don't decide on that. My office as such is not going to start running services on AI.
What is your opinion?
I think yes. I mean, not completely, but certainly there are elements that can already been, after tested, used in government services on AI. Chatbots are just, one example of the direction in which we're going, but there'll be many others coming up, and things that we don't even understand or know yet at this stage.
President Rīgas.
Well, first of all, I will borrow the answer you just gave about the government. That's a good one. For general use.
Did I talk about agency or lack thereof?
Yes,
it's the government that does it.
Yes.
For me,
And I still remember the phrase you made a couple of months ago when we discussed something that somewhere in the countries where we live, people want the prime minister to fail and the president to succeed. Also, but on a serious note, look, I do think that we have here a good question. What do we understand by a small nation? We can have great examples where our compatriots excel in science, in arts, in sports, and then everyone is kind of talking that Latvia or Finland is actually way above their rate. On the other hand, I'm from Latvia and I know that we have a bit mentality that I know and I do the best, and my neighbor, he knows nothing and he makes mistakes. So from that point of view, I would say that when it comes to the real impact, I better advocate, first of all, for more cooperation, not only on the national level, but actually we have great NBA framework that we use more for currently security policy debate, but I think that joining everything that we have, people, resources, research together, we can make more impact. And then
NB8 is not a computer program; it's Nordic Baltic.
Thank you.
Just because who knew what NB8 was?
Okay.
8 people. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's nice when you talk to sort of tech people and they're
Nordic
confused about an acronym.
Thank you. But we can make Nordic Baltic 8 NB8 computer or whatever AI or quantum program. Here also in Latvia, there's a great kind of strive to find our own niche when it comes to quantum, when it comes also to organizing artificial intelligence. I think that what we can do is to take one niche and work on that. We are not going to be neither Finland nor Latvia nor Sweden nor even Germany to some extent, I would say, being the biggest economy in the European Union. We are not going to make a difference on our own. But if we take and if we pursue a niche capability, if we cooperate more with like-minded nations, we can truly make a difference and we can excel as the group, but also individually. That would be my approach. But I'm preaching to the choir to some extent here. I know how difficult it is sometimes in Latvia to get, but universities to work together on a subject, not only countries.
Can I, just on the size thing, because I think Edgar's has a really good point on that. I mean, if I was a professor, I'd be really interested to, read a master's thesis on, who is more powerful, Facebook or Finland? There's a case to be made there. Of course, you can look at the different measures of, Facebook doesn't necessarily have the power of coercion, right? It doesn't have police, it doesn't have a military. But, healthcare services, another. So, we have to think outside the box as well. And this comes back to your question, does, AI destroy the agency of governments? I think we are getting to a point where instruments are so sophisticated that the relevance of government will probably diminish. Or put it this way, individuals will not see government as the key service provider. And if an individual doesn't see that, he or she will start looking elsewhere. So in that sense, I think there's a lot of research to be done in that field as well.
Well, let's shift a little bit a gear and let's do a bit of a poll. So I want to have a show of hands of how many of you have used AI this week.
Okay.
How many of you have used AI today?
Well, in the morning.
Okay, so we are pretty much speaking to a AI native audience. Mm-hmm. Yet when you look at the data, and I think there's emerging sense of data both from OECD, IMF, different other institutions, that there is quick dwindling of the junior jobs in quite a few of the professions. Coding is one, marketing, and then business junior positions are starting to dwindle away. So what would be your, of course, from a humble president's perspective, advice to people coming in an age of a time of AI possibility, it actually running potentially incredible risks for their own opportunities if they put the bet or the fortune or the ideas in the wrong place? What would be your best advice to the people here?
Well, I think that what we are seeing is nothing unique. Technology is developed in 17th, 18th, 19th century, 20th, 21st century, and some professions disappeared, some appeared, and this is transformation. It looks very nice from technological development point of view that we get more and more knowledge, we get better tools, but at the end of the day, yes, if people do not learn, do not adapt, then this is a social challenge. So I think that already for my generation, which is ancient.
We're young.
But still, I think that when I look back at beginning of 1990s and when I look now at the way how we learn, how we act, it's a complete change. It's a learning process. So from that point of view, the only advice I could give in this respect is simply stay on course. Assume that change is permanent, that you have to adapt to ever, let's say, changing technologies, AI. If you don't want, there are some professions that are still relevant in AI era as well. For instance, plumbers. Sorry, guys, you can do whatever you like with AI, but if you have a problem, then you are going to call professionals who probably are not going to use AI for time being. But I think that this is, as with all the changing societies and changing technologies, also a social problem. I heard a couple of anecdotes by Alex. I can provide one. I had a visit to Canada a couple of years ago when I was the foreign minister, and we went to one of labs where they are testing cars, driverless cars. It was about 7 or 8 years ago. And it was great. We tested, I got overexcited. I thought it's a future for all of us. And engineers and scientists in that lab thought that the Prime Minister of one of Canadian provinces recently visited them and said, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. And they asked why. This is progress, technology, everything. And he said, I have 50 or 60,000 truck drivers who are going to lose their jobs. What I'm going to do from that point of view, how I'm going to address social and political consequences that affect my re-election, for instance. And I think that this is, of course, not only about the great future of technologies, but also how humble presidents and more governments, because in Latvia also government is more responsible for that, are going to address such kind of also changes and challenges, and how we can provide actually the programs of re-education or retraining. And I also heard that in the medical business, not everyone is welcoming AI, not only because they are not so sure about, let's say, accurate results of that or another test, but also there is a bit fear what I'm going to do as the doctor and where is my role, especially in the business of doing a lot of tests and how to address that. So I think it's also a bit an issue that we should not overlook.
So yeah, and probably I'll make two sort of observations and then one piece of advice, because you asked for that. The first observation is that I think it's always very dangerous to be nostalgic, because it sort of puts you in a mindset that everything used to be better. And the truth, of course, is not that everything used to be better. Were things better in Latvia in 1989 than they are today? The answer is no. Were things better in Finland in 1972 than they are today? The answer is, of course, no. So you have to look at the relative development of mankind. And, you don't have to read Hans Rosling or anyone else and go through the data of how mankind has developed in the past few thousand years, and you'll immediately understand that there is always improvement. And there will always be a tension, between, economic wealth and existence and employment and technology and the Luddite problems and other things. There's no question. So don't be nostalgic is my first piece of advice. Things were not better for your parents. And I still believe that things will be better for your kids. My second observation is perhaps not what you want to hear, and that is that for humble presidents like Edgar's and me, the career path has been quite clear. It was study, work, and retire. Well, for you, sorry folks, but your life expectancy is 100, 110 or something like that. So your life cycle is going to be study, work, study some more, work again, study, work, and die. Sorry, I don't mean this in a bad kind of a way, but you have to sort of have a mentality that, you're not going to be spending your life under the palm trees after the age of 60. That the life cycle is going to be completely different. And when you look back, when we're gone, you look back at this lecture 50 years from now, and you haven't retired yet, you'll be going, what did those presidents say? they were right. But the bottom line is that your mentality of the life cycle is different. You're not going to be a 9-to-5 kind of a person. It's going to be very varied. And here's where I come to my third and final point, which is, the advice. My first piece of advice is be curious. I think, you will have a long and fulfilling life if you're curious, if you're open to new ideas constantly and not rejecting everything new that comes at you. I think that helps a lot. Secondly, be flexible. Understand that there's no such thing as a perfect life or a perfect career. And success is not measured by, your title or your salary or something like that. It's probably measured by whether you find meaning in your life. And meaning doesn't always come from work. It sometimes can. But it does come from human interaction and social activity. That artificial intelligence won't be able to give you. We've seen that. So, you're now at the beginning of a long path in your lives, and many of you have taken a risk by traveling to a new country to get an education. Many of you have traveled from, outside of Riga, et cetera, to be here, and just have that mindset throughout, and that'll take you to places. And don't be afraid. I think that's the key.
Well, I think this is a moment not to be afraid to ask the questions, and I pass over to Professor Douglas.
President Sub, President Rinkevich, not yet President, Mr. Sart. We are switching over to easygoing atmosphere. My routine is classroom professor, so I have two tasks today. The task number one is bridging students inside the house and outside the house, and the second task I will not reveal yet. So bridging together the questions, the rules of the game are you just raise the hand, you will get the mic, then you present yourself, who you are, and then you pose the question. And a lot of students, more students are outside of the house than inside, watching us through different means. So I will take the first question from outside, and then we are switching directly to the questions here. We have 10 minutes to go, so be short with the questions and be presidents with the answers. Okay. Both Finland and Latvia are relatively small countries living next to large and sometimes unpredictable neighbors. As presidents, how do you define courage, not only in geopolitics, but also in personal growth? And I believe the courage also looking toward the informational and technological developments we have. This is a student's question. A bit I updated that. And who will take the first answer? Okay. Humble president.
All the easy questions to me. No, I'll really try to be concise. I think that to some extent we know our neighborhood. We have our own history. And what Alex said about the future, it was pretty scary advice. Be courageous, be flexible, and we are all gonna die anyway.
Well, we're not sure about you guys.
Yeah, but that's how it ends. I think that be brave, be courageous, and simply manage to live in this environment with the set of values, the set of understanding of the environment, and simply resist the bully is a very short answer I can give. By the way, we have here representing, and I agree with you, don't look back at history, but sometimes you should learn from history. We had two models back in 1939, 1940. The one that resisted and the one that actually gave in. Both of us are sitting now in a different world, still with the same set of problems, and I think that we have learned a lot from our past in order to be stronger for the future.
Thank you. President Stubb.
What was the question?
About courage. So what defines the personal courage and also a courage of state, nation, citizen?
Well, personal courage comes, I think, from a few basic things, including a belief that what you do has relevance and meaning, and that the information that we deal with, because many of us are information managers sitting in front of screens or trying to understand numbers and letters and putting them into some kind of an order, that it pays off at the end of the day. And of course, as a president of a republic, my main job is to defend the independence, sovereignty, autonomy, and territorial integrity of a region which we define in today's world as Finland. And then my job is to make sure that the infrastructure, both civilian and military, is strong enough to deter a potential threat, which has, throughout our history, come from the East in the form of either Russia or the Soviet Union. I take great pride in the fact that from our independence in 1917 to today, we basically have grown from a dirt poor developing country into one of the most successful countries in the world. And one of the biggest differences in GDP per capita in the world was for a long time between the eastern border of Finland and the western border of Russia, and there's a reason for that. So we've been able to create a successful society. I don't say this with any kind of beating my chest or anything like that, but all I say is that I take courage personally, and then I think we Finns take courage as a nation, that even though we have had our problems in history and we have learned from them, we've been able to survive as a nation and will continue to do so ad infinitum.
Thank you very much. So, resist the bullies and be strong. That would be a conclusion. Thank you. Now is the time for live audience questions. There's a hand, please deliver. Complicated name, deliver. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Alice. I'm an international relations student, and my question is regarding Denmark, who has become the first country to put an amendment on Copyright Act regarding property for face and voice. My question would be, should we do something like the same in Latvia and in Finland?
I think, again, one of the things that you do as president, you admit when you don't understand the issue. So I would not know. I haven't, gone that far in my own thinking, and I don't know actually where we stand on that. But certainly it'll be a question that if I had ChatGPT, I'd be ferociously looking at it. But I'm sorry, I don't have an answer at this stage. Good question, but again, I learned something new.
Well, if I understand correctly, that's more again about protecting the privacy issues, actually, and also to some extent to resist what is very popular here in Latvia is actually fraud. Using AI in all ways. It's not only about governments, it's also about some criminal activity. I would also carefully study that, but I think that we need to be now very careful, and we should approach such kind of issues in a balanced way. On one hand, that's great that we continue protecting our privacy. But if we go too far, then the big question is whether we start again to, let's say, influence technological development. Those three ways, as Alex was referring, Chinese, American, and European, are still relevant. And yes, I do understand that feeling and the necessity to be very, very careful about privacy, but then the question is whether we are going to move too far. So I'm also open-minded, but I haven't, also I have to admit, studied that in detail.
Can I, there's a really good book called Privacy is Power by Carissa Valise. I think she was an assistant professor at Oxford. And she looks at this question in detail. And one of the things that woke me up when I read it, it begins with the story of data tracking of us as individuals. And this is linked to the final question, who owns our data? Because remember, when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing that you do? You probably look at your phone, right? Then you might download your sleep on an Oura Ring or another app, which has your heart rate variability, your heart rate, the quality of your sleep, your temperature. Then you surf a little bit on social media. That leaves another data track. You might go for your emails, leaves another data track. You might look at media, leaves another data track. Then you decide that, I think this morning I feel very healthy and energetic. I'm going to go out for a run. You download it onto an app. That leaves a data track. Next thing you do is you go to the fridge and you bought all the food on the net. That leaves a data track. So all I'm trying to say is that the amount of data that you voluntarily give up is already an encroachment on your privacy. And then I don't know where the limit comes in, where do you start to legislate on that or not. I think it's extremely complex.
Thank you. We have a time for one short question and one short answer, and I saw that you first raised the hand. Maybe I didn't saw properly, but that's fate. So please.
Hi, my name...
It works. It's okay.
Hi, my name is Isabella Passioni, and I am an international student from Finland studying at RSU Medicine. My question is, what's the future of collaboration between Finland and Latvia in artificial intelligence?
Ui.
Government.
Now I'm going to use the presidential answer. There is a huge potential. We work on it.
Aren't you an example thereof as a student here?
What did you say?
Aren't you an example of the collaboration between Finland and Latvia in
artificial
intelligence in medicine? So this is, I think, artificial intelligence is going to move and is moving so fast that to try to box it into some kind of now we're going to become AI superpowers together with Latvia is not going to work. So I think it's very much a grassroots movement where it starts from students of artificial intelligence or perhaps then of medicine who start coming up with different types of ways of working together. I'll give you one probably slightly silly example. There's a lovely Finnish company, Finnish-Polish company called ICE-I. They make satellites. And I went to the startup sauna at Aalto University in 2013 when I was Minister of Trade to meet these two guys, a Polish guy and a Finnish guy, and a little metal box. And they said, we're going to become superpowers in satellites. And sure enough, they did it. So it's this kind of natural cooperation that comes. So perhaps when you come out of here, you find a Latvian business partner or otherwise, and start working together, and that makes the cooperation in artificial intelligence.
No, just to expand a little bit, and Yanis reminded me a great example, which is NATO Center of Excellence for Strategic Communications, where not only Latvia and Finland, but many countries work on some of those challenges. But I think this is, again, we can make a lot of great political statements and encouragement. And that's what we are for here. And also to encourage companies, academic world to work together. But it's really, and here I 100% agree with Alex, it's up to individuals, up to companies. If they find great partner here in Latvia or Latvian companies in Finland or in Estonia or anywhere else, if they start cooperating and all of a sudden something great appears, that's a success. But unlike other countries that do not have so democratic systems, we can't issue a decree that by 1st of January 2027 there is going to be something great.
Just think of it. That's a good idea.
I think we are going to be cut now off both internet and the audience.
Dear President, please, a short moment. Thank you very much. First of all, huge round of applause to our presidents here. And Mr. Jan Start also. My second task is to organize photography, so I'm going to do without authorization selfie. That's number one.
Should go for 05 the other way around. Looks
definitely. And now, of course, we have official photographers in the house and the room, and the presidents are standing in the front with a huge class behind. Applause one more time, and let's do the photo.